You are never just a mind wrapped in skin, floating through a random life. No, you are a wave in the vast ocean of consciousness, rising not by accident, but by exquisite design. What if the chaos you resist is actually choreography? What if the confusion, the fear, the longing were not signs of failure, but sacred invitations? Your mind, for all its chatter and calculation, is not broken. It is a mirror. And behind every thought you've labeled as wrong or heavy is a hidden door, quietly waiting to open. The silence you avoid, it's not empty. It is the pulse of everything, whispering truths your logic can't hold but your being already knows. So let's step into that quiet space together, not to fix anything, but to remember. Because the moment you stop fighting your mind and start listening to it, you won't just understand yourself. You'll remember that you were always part of something infinite and beautifully whole. Let me tell you something you've probably never been told, not really. You are not your mind. You're not the voice in your head that never seems to shut up. You're not the stories it tells you late at night, not the fears it spins out of nowhere, not the judgment it throws at you when you look in the mirror. And you're certainly not the anxious commentary that shows up right before something important. But here's the catch. For most of your life, you've been taught to identify with it. You've been taught to believe that if you think something, it must be true. That if your mind says you're not good enough, or that something will go wrong, or that you're falling behind, then that must mean something's wrong with you. And that's the lie. You see, your mind is a tool. A brilliant, powerful, adaptable tool, but it's just that, a tool. It's like a lens shaped by everything you've ever seen, heard, feared, hoped for. It filters the world through memory, emotion, and pattern. And it's really good at doing what it was designed to do: keep you alive, keep you safe, help you predict what's coming next. But it's not you. You, the real you, are the one who notices the thoughts. The one who pauses and says, wait, why am I thinking this right now? The one who feels that something deeper is always present underneath the noise. That presence, that awareness is who you are. The mind is just the screen. You are the light shining through it. Now here's why this matters. Because if you think the mind is you, then you're going to get dragged around by every thought that pops up. And let's be honest, the mind can be a bit of a jerk sometimes. It will tell you you're too late, that everyone else is ahead, that you'll fail, that if you try, people will laugh. It will recycle the same old wounds and fears, and it'll do it so convincingly that you won't even question it. And that's when we get stuck, because you can't break free from something if you think it is you. You can't challenge the inner critic if you believe the critic is your own voice. You just keep obeying it, living inside it, shrinking because of it. But when you wake up, when you really wake up and realize, oh my God, I'm not this voice, you get to step outside it. That's where your power begins. Not in fighting your mind, but in observing it. You start noticing patterns. You hear the same fears come back, and instead of believing them, you smile and say, oh, you again. You start responding instead of reacting. You stop needing to control everything, because you're no longer identified with the part of you that's terrified of the unknown. You start to access a deeper intelligence, a kind of knowing that doesn't shout, but quietly guides. And that wisdom has always been there, underneath the noise. The more you practice noticing, the more spacious your life becomes. You're no longer trapped in the loop. You become the watcher of the waves, not the drowning swimmer. And I get it. This isn't always easy. The world around you is loud. Your past is loud. But every single day you have the chance to pause and ask, is this really me talking? Or is this just my mind running an old program? That question alone is a door. And once you walk through it, everything begins to shift. Because when you stop identifying with the mind and start identifying with the presence behind it, the one who watches, chooses, and acts with intention, then you're no longer being lived by your thoughts. You're living your truth, and that's when you finally remember you are not your mind. You are the one who knows you have one. Let's talk about something nobody teaches you, not in school, not in relationships, not even in most personal development books. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Seriously, that one sentence could change the way you live your entire life. Because for most people, the mind becomes this echo chamber of fear, doubt, comparison, anxiety, and every thought that comes up feels like a command. Like it has to be listened to. It's so easy to get caught in that loop. You think something, especially something painful or scary, and you don't question it. You feel it in your body, your heart races, your stomach tightens, and so it must be real, right? But let me ask you, have you ever been wrong? Of course you have. So why do we assume every thought that shows up is accurate? Why do we treat our thoughts like sacred truth instead of what they really are, mental activity? It's like walking through a forest and believing every bird call, every branch creaking, every rustle in the leaves is about you. No, that's just the forest being a forest. Your mind is doing the same thing. It's just being a mind, but no one tells you that. You're not taught that your mind is wired to assume the worst, to scan for danger, to repeat patterns, because that's how we survived as a species. That's why the loudest thoughts are often the most fearful ones. They're just trying to keep you safe, but they're outdated. They're based on old scripts, childhood, trauma, repetition, and here's the thing, the mind doesn't care if the thought is useful, it just cares if it's familiar. That's why your mind will keep feeding you the same thoughts over and over. You're not ready. They're not interested. You're going to mess it up again. Why even try? These aren't facts. They're just habits. Neural loops. And if you never pause to question them, you start building your life around a false story. So here's the shift. Your thoughts are not truths. They're options. And just like you wouldn't buy every item in a store just because it's on display, you don't have to buy into every thought your mind serves up. You can look at a thought and say, nope, not buying that one today. And that simple act of not buying, that's power. That's awareness. That's the beginning of freedom. It's not about having only positive thoughts. That's not realistic. Your mind's going to do what it does. What changes is your relationship to those thoughts. You become the editor, not just the reader, the driver, not just the passenger, and when you catch a thought, especially one that feels heavy, and instead of following it blindly, you pause and go, is this helping me? Is this even mine? Is this old or new? That pause creates space. And in that space, you get to choose. You get to decide what to believe, what to focus on, what to create next. That's the hidden truth no one tells you. The real power isn't in controlling your thoughts. It's in not letting them control you. You don't need to stop the storm in your mind. You just need to stop building your home inside it. And I'll be real with you, some of the most painful thoughts are sticky. They've been there for years. They're convincing, they sound like logic, but they're fear in disguise. And the moment you learn to meet those thoughts with curiosity instead of obedience, they lose their grip. You can have a thought and not make it your identity. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can hear the old story and choose to write a new one. That's what shifts everything. Not by force, not by pretending everything's perfect, but by realizing that your mind is just one voice. And you get to decide which voice leads. You're not here to be a slave to your thoughts. You're here to wake up inside them, and once you do, they stop being walls and start becoming windows. Because when you learn to question your thoughts, you don't just change your mind, you change your life. Let's talk about something we all experience, but almost no one understands: suffering, emotional pain. That heaviness you carry when things don't go your way, the heartache after a loss, the anxiety that creeps in out of nowhere, the shame after making a mistake. It feels so real, so overwhelming. But what if I told you that most of the suffering you feel isn't coming from the situation itself? It's coming from your resistance to it. I know that might sound strange at first, but stay with me. Let's say something happens, you get rejected, Someone says something hurtful or a plan falls apart. That's the event. That's the moment. And yes, that can absolutely trigger pain. But what happens next is where most of the suffering begins. The mind jumps in. This shouldn't be happening. This always happens to me. I'm such an idiot. I'll never get it right. Now you're not just feeling the pain of the moment. You're compounding it with layers of judgment, fear, shame, and overthinking. That's resistance, and it turns discomfort into suffering. It's like getting a splinter, and instead of removing it gently, you keep poking at it, pushing it deeper, screaming that it shouldn't be there. Now the pain isn't just about the splinter, it's about the fight with the splinter. This is what we do with our minds. We believe that if we can just think hard enough, we can change what already happened. But that's not how healing works. That's how we get stuck. You see, pain is part of life. It's raw, it's real, but pain passes. What doesn't pass is the story we attach to it, the meaning we give it, the belief that it shouldn't have happened or that it happened because of us. And that's where suffering lives, in the gap between reality and our resistance to it. Here's the truth nobody teaches us. Accepting a moment doesn't mean you approve of it. It just means you stop fighting it. It means you stop using your energy to argue with what already is. That's not giving up, that's wisdom. Because once you accept what is, you can actually move forward. You can make a clear choice. You can show up with power instead of panic. You stop being dragged through life by your thoughts and emotions and start walking through it with grounded strength. And I get it, accepting something painful is hard. But you know what's harder? Staying stuck in a mental loop that never ends, replaying it, resisting it, fighting it every day. Acceptance isn't passive. It's active surrender. It's the moment you say, "This hurts, but I'm not going to let it define me." It's when you stop saying, "Why me?" and start saying, "Okay, now what?" And once you stop resisting, something wild happens. The pain doesn't disappear right away, but it shifts, it softens. You're no longer making it heavier by dragging it through your thoughts. You're simply letting it be, and that opens the door for healing to walk in. You realize you've been carrying weight that wasn't yours. You've been trying to rewrite the past instead of walking into the future. And you don't need to do that anymore, because freedom doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from releasing the need to control everything. That's the hidden power of the mind, not to stop pain, but to stop creating more suffering around it. And when you really get this, when you start living it, your whole experience shifts. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. You stop asking why things are happening to you and start asking what they're awakening in you. And that's not just mindset work. That's a whole new level of self-leadership. You can handle pain. You've done it before. What you don't need to keep doing is suffering over it for days, weeks, months, or years, just because no one told you there was another way. Well, now you know. And here's the truth that changes everything. The moment you stop resisting what is, you set yourself free. We live in a world that worships movement, hustle, noise, more input, more answers, more distraction. We're constantly plugged in, scrolling, thinking, reacting. Like if we slow down even for a moment, everything might fall apart. But here's the thing nobody tells you. The most important answers in your life won't come from all that noise. They come from stillness. Stillness is not nothingness. It's not laziness. It's not emptiness. Stillness is a state of being that lets your real mind, the part beyond the chatter, actually speak. But because we're not used to it, stillness can feel scary. Like silence that's too loud, so we avoid it. We fill it with podcasts, texts, to-do lists, reruns of the same thoughts we've already had 100 times. But the truth is, your clarity lives in the quiet. When you finally sit still, not physically, but mentally, when you pause the compulsive need to fix, figure out, or escape. What happens is subtle but powerful. You begin to hear a different voice. One that's not reactive, not fearful, not conditioned. It's calm. It's clear, and it's yours. Stillness gives your nervous system space to breathe. It untangles the knot of thoughts that you've been dragging around all day. That thing you've been overthinking for weeks. You don't need more thinking, you need less noise, because the answers you're looking for don't come from panic. They come from presence. Have you ever had a moment where you were doing something simple, like walking, showering, or staring out the window, and suddenly a solution just popped into your head? You weren't grinding through it. You were open, you were still, and that's when your inner wisdom could finally show up. The problem is we don't trust stillness. We think if we stop doing, we'll fall behind, that we have to push harder. But forcing things from a frantic state doesn't create better outcomes, it just creates burnout. And listen, this isn't about meditating for hours a day or becoming a monk on a mountaintop. This is about creating micro moments in your day where you drop into stillness. Even 30 seconds of silence, of turning inward and checking in, that changes the trajectory of your day. It reconnects you to the part of you that isn't panicking, that isn't triggered by the world's chaos. That's where your power lies, because the real you, the centered, grounded, wise you, doesn't yell. That voice doesn't compete with the noise. It waits, it whispers, and you only hear it when you make space for it. Stillness also reveals what's really going on underneath the surface. Sometimes the thoughts we're running from, they're trying to show us something. When you sit still long enough, the truth has a funny way of rising up. And yeah, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the invitation. That's your soul pointing you toward what needs your attention. In stillness, emotions you've been suppressing might show up. Old fears, longings, truths you've been avoiding. But here's the gift. Once they're seen, they lose their grip. When you meet your inner world with presence instead of resistance, healing starts to happen without you having to force it. It's like tuning into a frequency that's always been playing, but until now, the volume on everything else was just too loud. You don't need to chase every answer. You don't need to react to every thought. What you need is to slow down enough to listen. Because when you access stillness, you don't become passive, you become precise. You stop leaking energy, you stop acting out of fear, you start choosing from a place of clarity. And in a world that's constantly pulling you away from yourself, reclaiming that inner quiet, that's revolutionary. So the next time your mind is racing, your heart is pounding, and everything feels like too much, don't run outward looking for relief. Pause, breathe, be still, because the stillness you're avoiding is where your answers are waiting. Let's talk about something that quietly shapes every decision you make, every relationship you build, and every opportunity you chase or miss. The stories you tell yourself, we all have them. You might not say them out loud, but they're running in the background all day long. You wake up in the morning and your mind goes, I'm behind. You see someone more successful than you and it whispers, I'll never be enough. You make a small mistake and suddenly it's, I always screw things up. These aren't just harmless thoughts. These are the scripts of your life. And what most people don't realize is that these stories, the ones that sound so familiar, so convincing, were never really yours to begin with. You inherited them from your upbringing, your environment, that one time in second grade when you got laughed at, the moment someone you looked up to criticized you, the breakups, the failures, the comparisons. All these little moments stacked up, and your mind turned them into narratives. And now, you live inside those narratives. Here's the truth. Your brain is wired to make meaning. It wants things to make sense. So when something painful happens, your mind goes, well, this must mean I'm not lovable. This must mean I can't trust people. This must mean success isn't for people like me. But the problem isn't the event. It's the story you attach to it. And unless you start paying attention, that story will write your entire future for you without your permission. Let me tell you something powerful. You are not the story your mind keeps repeating. You are the one listening to the story, and that means you have the power to change it. The most lie, Faltering moments often don't come from massive events. They come from tiny shifts in perspective. Like finally realizing, wait, what if that story isn't true? That's it. That moment of questioning, that's where freedom begins. Because when you challenge the story, you interrupt the pattern. And when you interrupt the pattern, you create space for a new choice. Think about it. Every time you've doubted yourself, hesitated, avoided something that could have changed your life, it wasn't reality stopping you. It was the story in your head, the story that says, I'm too old. It's too late. I'm not smart enough. People like me don't do things like that. Who wrote that? Where did it come from? And more importantly, is it serving you? Because if it's not, it's time to rewrite it. Rewriting your story doesn't mean denying your past. It means reclaiming the pen. It means looking at those moments that shaped you and saying, that happened, yes, but it's not the whole story. It's not the end. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not stuck. You've just been reading from the wrong chapter for too long. And once you realize that, you can start telling a new story, one where you're the main character, not the background extra, one where you're not the victim, you're the author. And look, it doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything's fine. This is about being honest with yourself, saying, yeah, I've been telling myself a lie and I'm done. It's about waking up and choosing to tell the truth, the deeper truth, which is that you are capable of change. That your past doesn't define you, that your story is still unfolding. When you change the story, you change the lens through which you see the world. And when that lens shifts, everything shifts. You stop waiting for permission. You stop shrinking. You stop replaying the same pain on loop because you finally realize you're the one holding the pen and that next sentence. It can be anything you want it to be. Let's get real about something that nobody wants to admit. The mind loves comfort, even when that comfort is destroying you. It craves the familiar, the predictable, the known. That's why change is so hard. Not because you don't want better, not because you aren't capable, but because your mind is wired to keep you exactly where you are, even if that place is misery. The human brain doesn't care about your growth. It cares about your survival. So if you've been anxious for years, your mind says, cool, we're alive, let's keep doing this. If you've been stuck in self, doubt, or people pleasing, great, we haven't died yet, must be working. It's not logical, but it is how your mind functions. And unless you understand that, you'll keep sabotaging your own progress and calling it just the way I am. The truth is, change isn't hard because you're weak. It's hard because your brain is trying to protect you. It's afraid of the unknown. It's afraid of the unfamiliar, but the unknown, that's where every single thing you want lives: confidence, purpose, peace, love. It's not in the comfort zone. It's in the moment you step into something new, even while your mind screams, this is scary, go back. But you don't have to obey every thought that shows up. You are not your fear. You are not your hesitation. You are not the voice in your head that says, you're not ready. You're the one hearing that voice. Which means you can also choose not to believe it. The moment you understand this, your entire life opens up. Because you stop waiting to feel ready, you stop waiting to feel confident, and you start acting, even with the fear in the room. You know what real courage is. It's not about having no fear. It's doing the damn thing while fear is still present. It's saying, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm still moving forward. That shift from letting fear drive you to letting it ride in the backseat, that's the beginning of freedom. Because if you're always waiting for your mind to give you permission, you'll be waiting forever. The mind doesn't deal in courage, it deals in caution. And that's why the people who grow, the people who evolve, they don't have some magical mindset that you don't. They've just learned to stop giving fear the final say. Let's get even more honest here. The fear never really goes away. It just changes shape. New level, new fears, bigger life, bigger resistance. But the voice of fear, it gets quieter the more you ignore it, not by fighting it, not by hating it, but by acting anyway. It's like this. You don't get confident and then take the leap. You take the leap, and confidence shows up because you moved. The mind wants certainty before action, but life doesn't work like that. You get clarity by moving, not by thinking it to death. That's what separates the people who create change from the people who stay stuck. Not willpower, not talent, just a decision over and over to act in spite of fear, to lean into the unknown instead of away from it. You have no idea who you'll become when you stop letting fear make your choices. You don't find your power by sitting in the same old loop, replaying the same old doubts. You find it by stepping outside the loop, taking one step into the unfamiliar, and discovering that you're more capable than your mind ever told you. That's how you build a new story. That's how you break free from patterns, not all at once, but one small act of courage at a time. And yeah, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Your mind's going to panic. You're going to feel resistance. Do it anyway, because comfort might keep you safe, but courage is what sets you free.